Joining me now is Annelise Nielsen. She's in Edinburgh, and we've seen now the. We've got Annelise there. Annelise, great to see you. The Queen has left Balmoral for the last time. Her coffin has begun the journey through the villages of the Scottish Highlands before heading south to Edinburgh, where she will lie in state at St Giles Cathedral on Edinburgh's High Street for 24 hours. The UK media is reporting that they're expecting thousands to line the hearse's route. Can you give us a sense of the mood on the ground?
We've already seen thousands out in Edinburgh alone. We're at Holyrood Palace, where she's going to make her first stop before that royal procession up to St Giles Cathedral tomorrow. And this is just such an extraordinary moment in British history. You can sense just the absolute grief among so many people and how much she meant to them. You can see here the floral tributes are still being laid. There's quite a process that they've set up at these different locations where there's someone to take off all the plastic wrapping and anything that might be bad rubbish to be flying around. And so you just get this really powerful imagery of all the flowers and the notes. And it's quite a thing that people are going around laying their flowers and then reading the notes, comparing stories. And that's one thing that's really quite struck me being here in all this is so many people have personal stories of the Queen, that they've met her before, that she visited their school, but she's also been just symbolically such a large part of so many important chapters in British history, and not least the pandemic. She was seen as such a unifying force. So this is where we're seeing her presence felt, and especially in Scotland, people wanted to come out and acknowledge that she did have such a strong connection to Scotland.
And there's so many moving messages when you actually read, and I've seen some of the photographs of the notes left with the flowers, and really poignant messages. And like you said, people who were touched personally throughout her 70-year reign. Now, the funeral is going to be Monday week, so there's a 10-day period from, and it's all perfectly choreographed plan for transporting the hearse to the final resting place at King George VI Memorial Chapel at Windsor. What can you tell us about the procession?
The procession is going to quite heavily feature the royal family. She's going to be escorted, as she is being right now, by Princess Anne. We're expecting King Charles to attend the service at St Giles Cathedral. But what's so important is the crowds coming out to see. This procession that she's on now from Balmoral down to Edinburgh is going to take around 6 hours, longer than it would normally take, but it's all planned in that she's going to slow down so people can see her coffin go through. These are small communities that she knew quite well. She went to a lot of these towns herself. She was quite involved even from a young age in the local communities, and so especially a lot of her staff members live around here as well. 400 different staff members working for Buckingham Palace, so we're going to see more of that kind of personal connection here in Scotland as she progresses towards Edinburgh. But there are quite literally people from around the world who've come to see this and be part of this, because it is such a once-in-a-lifetime thing. We really won't have another Queen quite like her and see a funeral like this, that we know she had a personal hand in curating every detail over decades.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And the Queen was just the consummate monarch. You're going to, well, not going to find it difficult. It's almost impossible to find people who did not have great respect for this woman. I know there's a few outliers, and we'll get to those later. And we had these comments from the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, earlier.
And she was such a respected figure, regardless of where people stand on the political spectrum. But the bigger questions about our Constitution are not ones for this current period.
And we've seen such a diverse range of people turning up to pay their respects, and I think that really speaks about the sort of monarch she was. We've got people from all ages, Annelise, all backgrounds, ethnicities. It's just a credit to the Queen and her United Kingdom that she brought such a wide variety of people together. And when you look at the crowds, all ages, all backgrounds.
A lot of young people, that's absolutely right, but I've been really struck by just how many people from around the Commonwealth have been coming out, especially seeing a lot of the commentary coming out of the US. This has been a unifying moment for so many in the Commonwealth, especially we've seen a lot of people from Hong Kong under the former colony, but also from around Africa. We've met a lot of people. I spoke to this lovely couple of sisters from Ghana yesterday, and they were saying how she's been such an important part of their lives and how she helped bring so many within the Commonwealth together. That's obviously become something that King Charles III now has become very focused on as well, because this is the power of the monarchy, that they can continue the Commonwealth if they can, because that's going to be a major challenge as well, we've seen. But I've seen people from right around the world come here to pay their respects at Buckingham Palace as well, and it does show the power of unifying that the Queen had.
Absolutely. Now, we've all seen those pictures now of the young royals, Meghan and Harry, along with Will and Kate, out among the public. But it seems some in the public haven't taken too kindly to Meghan's presence. Let's have a look at these scenes outside of Windsor Castle, with some people who seem to be less than thrilled to meet Meghan.
Queen would have said, would have wanted. She always described Harry and Meghan as much-loved members of the royal family. And as the King last night mentioned, he talked about how the Queen had this unerring ability always to see the best.
Annelise, your thoughts on that, and what is the mood towards the recalcitrant royals there? Is public mood softening towards them, or is, like we saw with those pictures, they're being ignored a little bit?
Well, the sense I get from people when I ask about them, and I remember asking about them at the Platinum Jubilee when I was here as well, was people would say, well, it's right, he's here to support the Queen, and they didn't want to talk about them much more. I thought what was really interesting with this was when this walkabout happened, no one expected Harry and Meghan to join. The story before and the coverage had been about Harry leaving Balmoral on his own, missing out on seeing the Queen, getting comforted by the baggage handler as he got onto the plane, and it just looked like quite a lonely picture. What was noticeable, though, was when this walkabout happened, immediately journalists were posting that they've been briefed by the Cambridges, now the Prince and Princess of Wales, but the staff, that this was William's call, that he made the call to Harry, and that he reportedly did it quite abruptly. It was right before the walkabout. He called and said, do you want to come? Basically, we're going now. And so that puts the power back in his hands, and it shows that they're a little more on the front foot than they were. The keep quiet and don't complain approach still remains, but they were trying to take more control of that, because what we've seen for the last 2 years is Harry and Meghan lobbing their accusations over the ocean, and this is where they wanted to kind of push back a bit, but put that unified force forward. And then the other thing they were briefing out was saying that Charles told the boys that they needed to do it together, that they needed to put it to one side and make that more unified front. But this is all, of course, against the context of will Archie and Lily be formally made Prince and Princess? Because right now the royal family's just posted on the website the line of succession. They're in it, but they don't have the titles, which they said they didn't want at the beginning, but we know how contentious that discussion got, especially after the Oprah Winfrey interview.
Oh, absolutely. And if they don't get those titles, we're going to be hearing about it for a very long time, I would imagine, and there'd be all sorts of accusations of why they haven't got it. Annelise Nielsen. That's true. Yeah. That's true.